Hello and welcome to the Redox Connection, where we discuss about our extraordinary, beautiful bodies and how to take responsibility for our overall well-being. I'm Liana, I'm a holistic wellness coach, and I love inspiring people to tap into their full potential. With us, Dr. Ray Dixon. Hello, Dr. Ray. Thank you for joining us today. Dr. Ray, as you may know, is a chiropractor and naturopath with 40 plus years of practice and one of the world's first redox educators. Today's topic is going to be about the dysfunctions in the digestive system, and especially the upper part of the digestive system. In the previous videos, Dr. Ray has explained and given us an overall vision of what exactly is the digestive system and its different compartments and how long it takes. So we invite you to go and find the video of which I might add in the link below about the digestive system, so you can really understand how extraordinary, wonderfully our body actually functions. Today, instead, we'll be talking about what happens when things go wrong. And especially, we'll be focusing on the upper part of our digestive system. So, Dr. Ray, guide us further.
Well, digestion, as we taught last session, it begins in the mouth. And we broke digestion into two components, mechanical and chemical. And in the mouth, the most important part of mechanical digestion is chewing. Technical name is mastication, but we all know it as chewing. So where your teeth are really important. So any problems can begin here if you lack teeth. In fact, it was only the other week I was reading a report on nutritional deficiencies with age, and they had a calibration method based on how many teeth you've lost. Well, that's all really about not being able to chew your food properly. So it's important. Oral hygiene, looking after your teeth, is critical to that mechanical digestion that takes place in the mouth with chewing. And many people also do not chew enough. They almost see it as my mouth's for tasting, and once I've tasted it, I need to swallow it. Well, no, you need to help the digestion. So always chew a little bit more than less, so that you get optimum mastication of food. Then, of course, you have saliva coming from the salivary glands, which include a number of things, but they also have the first carbohydrate digesting enzyme known as salivary amylase. So that needs to get mixed into the food as your chewing turns it into what's called a bolus. So they're the primary things in the oral cavity that need to take place regarding digestion. So if you don't chew enough, you've got problems with your teeth affecting your ability to chew. And of course you can have mouth ulcers, kinds of things that can affect the oral cavity, receding gums, periodontitis in the gums. All this can affect the digestion. So good oral hygiene is really important. Also, I need to emphasize right at the beginning, digestion takes place under a particular division of the autonomic nervous system, which is known as parasympathetic. Now, the parasympathetic is the best way for you all to think about how do I activate that. It's to relax. The parasympathetic division controls rest and digest activity and relaxation and sleeping, as opposed to the sympathetic division, which is your adrenaline and noradrenaline being fired up and concentrated and stressed and focused. So right at the beginning here, should you eat on the run? No, because you're conflicting the division. If you're on the run and you're hectic and busy, that is sympathetic. So you're essentially putting a brake on your digestive ability. So it's very important when you eat, you chill out. It's time out. It's relax. Then you will salivate more. If you get stressed, by the way, and sympathetic, don't you get a dry mouth? That's because it shuts down the salivary glands. So relax when you eat, and then chew well, and then of course you swallow. We talked last time that peristalsis, the mechanical contractions, the muscular contractions around the wall of the esophagus will then move the food, which is now called the bolus, through the esophagus down into the stomach. Now, the bolus will pass through a sphincter as it approaches the stomach. There is no digestion per se in the esophagus, the food pipe. It's just a channel to move that bolus down into the stomach. Then as you pass through the cardiac sphincter, or gastroesophageal sphincter is another name, then you enter the stomach. Now that sphincter can become problematic.
Right.
You've heard of a hiatus hernia, which is a herniation or a bulb around that sphincter. And most people have heard of gastroesophageal reflux disorder, GORD. And that's where that valve is not functioning properly, because once your food contents, your bolus is moved into the stomach, it's ready for the gastric phase of digestion. Now there's a lot of, up to 2 litres a day of gastric juice enters your stomach. And that includes enzymes that get mixed with the bolus to turn it into chyme, which I taught in the last lesson or the last session. And that's why it becomes liquefied, as you've seen when you vomit. Where's that coming from? Well, that's gastric juice, coming from the gastric glands. And there's enzymes and there's hydrochloric acid in there. It gets mixed and churned, a lot of mixing and churning to make it into that chyme, which of course is mechanical digestion. And then you've got some of the enzymes, particularly pepsinogen to pepsin. Now, pepsinogen converts to the active form of pepsin for digesting proteins under the influence of hydrochloric acid. So if you're on antacids too much, or you're on proton pump inhibitors and suppress the production of hydrochloric acid, that might have an effect on your protein digesting enzyme in the gastric phase of digestion as well. Nonetheless, if you've got stress or you've got a hiatus hernia, then that chyme content of the stomach can go the wrong way. Instead of small intestine, it can regurgitate up the esophagus, and that's what GORD is, gastroesophageal reflux disorder. And of course, you can imagine acid contents were not designed to go into the esophagus. The esophagus is not designed to withstand hydrochloric acid, which is why you get heartburn, burning, discomfort.
Beautiful, yeah.
Or inflammation. Inflammation's esophagitis. But you can get ulceration in the esophagus as well. It's called Barrett's esophagitis. And indeed, it can lead to cancer over many, many years if it's excessive. So then, in the stomach itself, now all things stomach in physiology and anatomy, disease processes are referred to as gastric. So, you can have ulcers in the stomach, gastric ulcers. You can have esophageal ulcers. Now, the wall of the stomach, healthy, is designed to withstand hydrochloric acid, of course. It has a particularly effective mucosal barrier to protect that wall, which the esophagus didn't have from hydrochloric acid. Healthy. A lot of people aren't. So then that digestive process, mixing, churning, mechanical digestion, some of those chemical enzymes, including hydrochloric acid, participating in chemical digestion takes place. Now, once that chyme is fully processed, 3 to 5 hours, depending upon how much protein's in the food, because that slows it a little bit, then that's going to start moving out of the stomach into the small intestine, which we'll cover disorders of another time. So obviously there are lesser known disorders, but the most common ones of the stomach would be gastritis, gastric ulcers. When you get older, you can have a problem. It's kind of linked to the stomach. It's not really a stomach. Well, it is really a stomach problem. You're not making enough intrinsic factor, which is necessary to absorb vitamin B12. Now, intrinsic factor comes from the gastric glands of the stomach. So you can have the vitamin B12, but you can't absorb it. And you can have anemia and other issues when you're older. So it's kind of linked to the stomach. But more like gastritis, gastric ulcers, gastroesophageal reflux, heartburn, they're the most common things from the stomach. I mentioned inflammation of the esophagus, esophagitis, barotoesophagitis, ulceration. So that gives you an overview.
Brilliant. Just to summarize now, because understanding from what you've just mentioned, there's a lot. It's taking time out to eat our food while we are in a state of calmness and stillness. So we're focusing on it. Correct me if I'm wrong. They often say that the digestion actually starts with our eyes, because the moment that we are actually looking at the food, we're already preparing ourselves to digest, and automatically our saliva glands start functioning so that we are activating that process, because we are present in the moment and we're focusing on the food and the digestive system without having distractions or being on the run or on the road. So this fast food run fast works actually against our bodies. If you would have to summarize, what are the main causes for these dysfunctions?
Well, you're correct. You need to be relaxed to digest properly. That's parasympathetic. You're also correct that as soon as, if you're relaxed and you visualize food, even smelling food, olfaction, will stimulate salivation, and it will stimulate via the parasympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system, the major nerve many have heard of, the vagus nerve, will also cause the gastric juices to begin to be secreted, even before you've had your first mouthful. But this is all relying on the parasympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system and you relaxing somewhat. Now, sure, you can be stressed and eat, you'll survive, but you won't survive well. And that leads to what you just said. What are the major factors that create this indigestive problems of all the GI tract, let alone the upper GI tract? Well, number one would be stress. It will be exactly not relaxing adequately and taking that little bit of time out and sleeping well and digesting well. So that's number one. Number two would be, as we mentioned with the mouth, not chewing adequately. If you get better mechanical digestion with mastication, then the enzymes can work much more efficiently as you move into the stomach and further on into the small intestine. So oral hygiene, looking after your teeth, chewing your food on both sides and chewing well is also really important. Beyond that, it's a whole array of things can have an effect. Alcohol strips the lining of your stomach. It breaks down that mucosal barrier that protects the stomach wall from the hydrochloric acid too much. Drugs can have an effect there, like aspirin, etc., because that's why they were known to cause ulcers years ago, and they've become more careful with dosage levels of aspirin. Ones that break down a little bit further after the stomach, etc. Too much fried fatty food can place demands on the upper digestive tract and the rest of the digestive tract. Eating too much. An old naturopathic law was never finish a meal feeling full.
Beautiful.
If you finish a meal feeling full, you've already eaten too much. And remember, there is a slightly delayed response for your stretch receptors to inform your brain that you've had enough. But also, you can force the stomach to excessively stretch.
Right.
For 3 or 4 times the amount of food it really should want to take. So, they are the big picture things. Yep. We could get into the little picture for hours, but, eating well, not eating too much, chewing your food well, being relaxed, not drinking too much when you're eating, because
that's another good one.
In water, if you have too much as you're eating, will dilute those juices required for the digestive process. So they're the big picture things that immediately come to mind.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Before we close off, obviously, we'd like to always go back to the redox connection. Is there a connection between the redox and digestive system?
Absolutely. All cells run on redox. So every cell in the human body, whether it's a salivary gland cell making saliva, or whether it's the stomach glandular cells making gastric juice and enzymes, they're all made by cells. Even hydrochloric acid is made by cells. So those cells, to have maximum efficiency and health, rely on redox signaling molecules. And so the redox connection is the most fundamental requirement for healthy functioning all cells. Now in this instance we're talking about digestion, so of course it's essential for the lining of your esophagus, it's essential for the lining of your stomach, they're essential for the healthy functioning of the gastric glands where the gastric juice is made, the salivary glands where the saliva is made, etc., etc. So my beginning journey with all health problems, all before I fine-tune into the diet and supplements, is make sure the person's taking a bioreplenishment formula of redox signaling,
which is detect, replace, or repair or replace, fundamental, right, for optimum health. Thank you once again, Dr. Ray. That was so interesting as always. We look forward to the next series as we dive into more topics on the beautiful, incredible digestive system and way beyond. We invite you to follow us in the series, leave comments, share it with those that are interested in taking care of their well-being, and just remember that healthy cells, healthy you, happy you. Thank you, Dr. Ray. See you next time.
Bye-bye. See you next time.